From the point of view of any other organism, human being is one of the weirdest creatures, since its anatomy to its way of living nowadays, which kills the individual slowly, by the food, drugs, or even contraceptive methods. We will talk about the differences between men and women, but for now, when both sexes find their life mate, love happens.
It makes the comparison of love with a drug, as once you try it, you become addicted to it, and with a sword, as it has some good things but also bad things. Then talks about the different types of love and the feeling of jealousy. Firstly, makes a reflection of why it doesn't matter to us that our partner have friends, but does matter to us that they have other sexual partners. Finally, taking that into account, they reach to the conclusion that jealousy is not a part of human nature, but rather a cultural environment, as that the function of an emotion is to motivate behavior, and in this case is made wording.
Even though we can be the most threatening and altruistic animal, our spare time goes in activities such as religion or music, nothing to do with the future of the species or caring about our offspring. So, how could a mere ape understand the vast universe then? At the beginning of times, humans tried to understand the world and its own existence. Thanks to all these ideas, human behavior occurred. Nowadays, we can explain it by evolutionary psychology and cultural evolutionary psychology.
This chapter is divided by several sections based on cultural memes, where there are 5 hypotheses discussed. The first hypothesis about cultural evolution is based on adaptive culture, which is based on the undetected plagiarism, stating that our species' clever trick is stealing ideas from one another's brains. This hypothesis says cultural evolution is all about the genetic fitness of cultural animals. Our cultural products, our memes, are tools and tactics for enhancing inclusive fitness. They're designed primarily to boost our survival and reproductive success, or to increase our ability to bestow benefits on our relatives. Culture is a genetic survival strategy of the human animal. The second hypothesis is focused on cultural group selection, which says cultural evolution is sometimes about individual fitness, but not always. In some cases, it's about the good of the group. Group competition may favor memes that benefit the group, even when they take a toll on the individual meme holder. As such, many cultural products are designed, to a greater or less extent, to shape the survival and success of the groups in which they are found. The selfish meme leads to a third hypothesis. Cultural evolution isn't about the survival of the fittest genes, the fittest individuals, or the fittest groups. It's ultimately about the survival of the fittest memes. Though cultural competition, memes, and memeplexes come to look as if they were intelligently designed to propagate themselves in out minds and cultures. Often they do this by helping the people who hold them or the groups to which those people belong. Sometimes, however, they do it without helping us at all, or even while actively harming us. The fourth hypothesis is discussed in the section about gene meme coevolution 1, which is sculpting the body. Cultural evolution is about the survival of the fittest memes. Memes are selected to the extent that they're good for themselves, regardless of whether they are good for their hosts or their host's group, although often they are. Through cultural competition, memes and memeplexes evolve to inhabit and exploit human minds. In doing so, however, they create new selection pressures on their hosts. As a result, long-standing memes may bring about evolutionary change in the minds and the bodies they reside in. Finally, there is also a cultural intelligence hypothesis. According to it, human intelligence evolved in lockstep with our evolving culture. Our tools and traditions generally enacted our fitness. Therefore, culture created a selection pressure for bigger, smarter brains.
How could we explain such a bizarre creature? Evolution, said Darwin, but which are the organisms that reproduce and which are the ones that don't? For this, Darwin developed the natural selection theory. Changes are adaptations that look like they have been done consciously by someone, however, is a design without designer, as Richard Dawkins said. And all this creates a question: what are people here for? And we find some hypotheses. The first hypothesis is natural selection.
There are 6 examples of selection beyond biology, referring to a concept called blind selection. The first example concerns the fishing boats or any kind of boat. This example states that every boat is copied from another one, without really knowing what makes a boat efficient. It is the sea herself who fashions the boats, choosing those who work and destroying the others. Therefore, boat designs may come from blind, mindless selection rather than the mechanism of intelligent minds. The second example is based on conditioned behavior, stating that behavior may be a product of blind natural selection too, where operant conditioning leads to an adaptive behavior due to the different negative and positive consequences that some behaviors will provoke without your awareness that this is happening. Language is also mentioned as a product of an evolutionary process, without being product of an intelligent design at all. The better, the shorter, the easier forms will keep passing to the next generations, evolving to be more learnable and more useful in time. Now I will encompass 2 points together that I believe that are related, as they are based on business context. The selling of teddy bears states that business people don't necessarily need to know why some products sell better than the others. They only need to copy the ones that do. In conclusion, business that turn a profit survive evolve into profit-making machines, increasing their selling percentage. Finally, science involves 2 key ingredients of Darwinian evolution: variation and selection. Variation, as scientists propose competing theories about the nature of the universe, and selection, as they call those theories that don't match that they see in the world and in the lab.
The second hypothesis is understood as evolution for the survival of the fittest individual. Darwin, as well as affirming the reproduction of the best adaptive organisms to the environment, affirmed that this also occurred towards mating, and he called it sexual selection. Males are provided with weapons and sexual ornaments. Weapons are known as intrasexual selection, for producing fights towards males of the same species to fight for females. And sexual ornaments are intersexual selection, which are used for attracting females. This leads us to the third possible hypothesis: the genes of the fittest. Those organisms that, thanks to the environment adaptation, were able to reproduce and therefore their genes were the best for survival in that concrete environment, and passed to the next generations. On the other hand, we have the fourth hypothesis, named the grandchildren, and turns down the third hypothesis. This fourth hypothesis affirms that most adaptations found in nature are to create a society full of your relatives. This is known as the inclusive fitness and composes the fifth hypothesis. Direct fitness is the direct reproductive success, while the indirect fitness are all the individuals related between them in a certain degree. Then we found the Richard Dawkins hypothesis, which is as important as the natural selection theory. In this theory, talks about the gene's-eye view of evolution. And this theory affirms that the ones that replicate faster replicate themselves more than the ones that go slower.
With mate is connected also the theory of sexy altruism. It explains helping behavior as a part of mating preparation. Because through the altruistic act, individuals show them strength and kindness, which are two highly appreciated characteristics which increase chances to find good long-term mate and have more offspring than the others. Hamilton's theory of altruism, sometimes called as a theory of selfish genes, says that altruistic behavior is just a way how to pass our genes to another generation. By different words, we are helping other people just when it raises our chance to have more offsprings. Reciprocity theory of altruism considers people as economically thinking animals who want to use their resources effectively. We are willing to help other individuals when we trust that in future they will pay this favor back. Of course, there are cheaters who decided to use the system of mutual help to favor themselves. They are taking and never giving back. But
that it's just a short-term strategy, because after a while they will be excluded from the system. Kin selection theory has the same basement. We are more likely to help our relatives because it increases their chance to survive and pass the genetic information which we have in common. The will to help is equal to ratio of shared genetic information, and therefore we help our close family more likely than our distant relatives. Only exception from this rule are our long-term mates, who were considered as a close family even they doesn't have the same genetic information as we do. But altruistic action in benefit of them also enhance chance of surviving our offsprings. Last theory claims that people are helping each other because they are moral and generous creatures. But this theory can be proved, and also it has many opponents. The main counter-argument is that helping others trigger pleasant feelings. So anytime when we are helping, we do it just to achieve internal reward. There is a special kind of altruism which exists just in a human society. It's called extreme altruism, and it describes situation when people voluntarily risk their health or even lives to save strangers. And there the question arises, why do we do things like this? It's not adaptive behavior and doesn't help us to survive, or does it? Group selection theory goes far. It's counting on our social connections and claim that a group of people share more than genes. They have also same social system, norms and values, which are worth it enough to be protected and spread to another generation. That's why do people help individuals who are not genetically related with. As we know, exists some dimorphism between males and females, and this comes in different degrees in other species, talking physical and psychologically. Women usually care more because they cannot have as much offspring as male can, so they try to make the best male. So, even though they may not have too much offspring, but they can have the best. The main reason why females try to look good for male, so they try to look young, which means a symbol of fertility. This is why males compete and females choose, the MCFM theory by Andrew Thomas.
This part talks about reproduction, since finding someone to having offspring says that our body is not designed to live forever, but to live enough to have offspring. Also that we have the equipment, but not all humans have the desire of it. Another thing is that humans do not choose randomly their partners, as they make these choices taking into account a series of preferences or standards that depend on the period of time or cross-cultural differences, and that there isn't a universal prototype. Finally, these preferences affect natural selection. When a person is more symmetric, more attractive it is, so more possibility to reproduce. Also, this part talks about the reproductive potential and his indicators. The first indicator is age, and makes a sample of that if you had to save a person, you make a priority on the humans that is going to give you more offspring, or at least has the possibility of it, although there are always some exceptions. The second indicator is health, and when it comes to the grants, they may value the healthy child more. In this part of the chapter, we talk about the cycle of life, making a reference to how humans at the beginning are more dependent at the end, and also the words of parents that indicate that human minds aren't only a mating mind, but also a parenting mind. On the other hand, talks about some mechanisms that natural selection creates on us to be more parental. An example of that is the tendency we have to see babies cute, although sometimes they aren't cute. Finally, it talks about our happiness doesn't mind to natural selection, but passing our genes. Yes, and that is why it favors our organisms to have lots of kids, although sometimes we are not happy with it. Finally, this part makes a reference on polygamy and monogamy. Says that the sense of culture we are monogamous, but when it becomes to the truth, there are humans that are polygamous. And to corroborate that, we have the evidence of the necessity of legalizing the polygamous marriage.